What's going on, guys? Welcome to Proper MMA. My name is Gabe, and today we're going to be discussing the recent fight announcement for UFC 305 Perth in Australia. Dricus du Plessis defending the middleweight title against Israel Adesanya. And first off, starting off with initial impressions of this fight. I think this is a great fight. I think it's the right fight to make, and I think the stylistic matchup is phenomenal. You have Israel Adesanya, who is elite kickboxer, great anti-grappling, great power, great counter striker, great leg kicks. He does just so many things on the feet he does well against a absolute madman in Dricus du Plessis, who will keep pressing forward until the job is done, who also has great power, great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, a granite chin, and just have you ever seen a fighter who has more of a will to win than Dricus du Plessis? I mean, the guy is an absolute maniac. He will take a shot to land one. And I think this fight's absolutely phenomenal. I think it's going to be a super entertaining fight. And on top of just the clashing styles we have, the build-up is going to be phenomenal, and it's going to be super interesting. So with the whole, I guess I'll give a little bit of my take on the real African thing. I tend to agree a little more of Dricus on this type of stuff because, he trains in Africa. He's lived in Africa his whole life. When he says, where are those belts going? His belt didn't go to America. It didn't go to New Zealand. It went to South Africa. And I think that's really important to him. But besides that, I think the whole beef, I think it's good. I think it's going to be really entertaining watching him go back and forth. I think it's going to bring out some ugly aspects of the MMA community when it comes to race and stuff. I think it's going to be really toxic. But overall, I think it's going to be super entertaining. The press conference is going to be hilarious. And you look at a guy like Israel Adesanya who, let's be honest, I don't hate the guy as much as like a lot of other people do. But in fact, I don't hate him at all, to be honest. But he's very, very cringy. And he just does things that it's just really easy to make fun of him about. And I think almost every single MMA fan, a lot of them at least, is gonna enjoy watching Dricus roast the shit out of him at the press conference and on Twitter. And speaking of Dricus, his mic skills, I think Dricus, and maybe you've never heard, maybe I'm the only guy you've heard say this. I think he's the best trash talker in the sport. And I know someone might be like, oh, what about Conor McGregor? Listen, when I say best trash talker in the sport, I'm talking about active fighters. Conor McGregor, love the guy. He's not really active. His last win is the dead body of Cowboy Cerrone. And if you go look at his last real, legitimate win, you have to go back 8 years to 2016 to Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205. He's not really active. So when you look at guys, like Dricus who are actually winning fights, he's never lost in the UFC before, he's dominating guys. And the way he just bullied Sean Strickland at that press conference. I mean, you had Sean Strickland after that DMing Dricus, DMing Dricus and saying, "Oh, Dricus, if I go too far, let me know. I'll tone it back a bit." I mean, Dricus just, Sean was making those remarks about his coach, and Dricus was just like, you know what, Sean? I'm going to stoop to your level, and you're not going to enjoy it very much. And Sean Strickland cried like a baby after Dricus put him in his place. That was super fun to see. And I could see Dricus doing similar things to Israel Adesanya in this fight. At least, I don't think he's going to mentally break Israel like he broke Strickland in a lot of ways. But I still think Israel just has there's so many things he does that Dricus can poke fun at. All the fans are going to be on Dricus' side, at least most of them. So I think when fight week comes around, it's going to have that big fight feel that we all know and love. The trash talk is going to be awesome. The press conference is going to be a huge deal. And the fight itself, I think, is going to be phenomenal. The stylistic clash. As I said, you have this elite kickboxer, elite counter striker, great anti-wrestler in Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis, who's super unorthodox, ugly style, looks, really sluggish at times, and it looks like it shouldn't be effective, but it's extremely effective. Not just a little effective. It is one of the most effective fighting styles in the entire middleweight division, if not the most right now, because he has the belt around his waist. So, stylistic matchup is fantastic. The build-up is going to be great. And for my early prediction, I can really see Israel Adesanya knocking him out. finding when Dricus overswings on a punch and just countering him and putting him down. But it wouldn't shock me if it happened. Or maybe Adesanya wins by decision. But I'm picking Dricus du Plessis to win by decision. I don't think he finishes Adesanya. I know he was able to find the chin of Strickland, and he's finished a lot of his opponents. But I just don't. I think Adesanya is a good chin, and I think he's going to be able to eat most of the shots that Dricus lands on him. But I think Dricus is going to be pressing forward the whole time, looking for the kill. He's going to mix in the occasional takedown like he did against Sean Strickland to help him bank in rounds. And I think after the first round, which I do believe Israel will win, I believe, his kicks, a couple good shots on Dricus' chin will lead to Israel Adesanya getting that first round. But, and honestly, this is the main reason why I'm picking Dricus to win the fight and to win it by decision, is that when you look at the Brad Tavares fight, you look at the Sean Strickland fight, the Darren Till fight, first round against Brad Tavares, it was just bad IQ, fighting IQ from Dricus. It's just some stuff he did was not ideal. But then after that, he makes adjustments. He goes out and kind of beats the dog shit out of Brad Tavares for the next 2 rounds. Darren Till, borderline 10-8s him, if not 10-8s him. Then Darren Till, who, if he's good at one thing, Darren Till, I know he's not in the UFC, but he's really good at striking, and he landed a huge knee and was piecing up Dricus in that second round after getting dominated in that first round. And Dricus, he goes back to his corner, talks to his coach, works out things among himself, and he goes out there and just looks so much better in that third round against Darren Till to seal that win. And you go look at Sean Strickland. I thought Sean's most successful round, at least off the top of my head, was the first round, where his jab was really giving Dricus problems. But you could see that as the fight went on, in between each round and during the fight, Dricus made the necessary adjustments to get his hands on Sean, to take him down, to clip him with shots, to avoiding Sean's jab is almost impossible because he's so good at it. But he was able to minimize, Sean's jab as much as probably he possibly could, but he was able to make the adjustments to win that fight. And I know a lot of people are saying, robbery. Listen, close fights aren't robbery. If you scored it for Sean Strickland, nothing wrong with that at all. I personally scored it for Dricus. It was a super close fight, and just because your favorite fighter lost does not mean it's a robbery. We need to stay consistent with this stuff. And I get it. People are biased, everyone has their own fandom. I totally get it. But just because your favorite fighter lost a really razor close fight does not mean it's a robbery. The MMA community needs to understand that a little more, in my opinion. So I think Dricus, back to the fight, I think Dricus is able to get the occasional takedown at the end of each round. He's going to be dictating the pace of the fight. He's going to be landing more shots on Israel. And I think he maybe wins the next 4 rounds after the first. Obviously, at least he wins 3 out of 4 of them. But I could see him losing that first round, making the adjustments. And when you combine the pressure from Dricus, you combine the shots he's going to land, the power that's coming from his hands, and you combine the occasional takedown, I think he's able to win basically every round after that first round. And he's able to make those adjustments. And I think the judges are going to have a pretty easy time in this fight. And I think Dricus is going to continue on in a great career so far with the biggest win of his career over Israel Adesanya. And who knows, maybe this is the start of he beats the last great middleweight champion. Maybe this is the start of the next great middleweight champion. Only time will tell of that. But I think Dricus gets the best win of his career by unanimous decision against Israel Adesanya at UFC 305 in Perth. Now, on to the topic of, is Israel Adesanya getting an undeserved title shot? I'm all about meritocracy. Just want to say that right now. And when I look at an undeserved title shot, I look at UFC 299, Marlon Vera versus Sean O'Malley. I look at UFC 296, Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards. That's what I look at. And I use these examples, these 2 specifically. There's a lot more, but we'll just look at these 2 for now. Because there were a clear number 1 contender at the time. For UFC 299, you had Merab. For UFC 296, you had Bilal Muhammad. I know everyone, we don't want Bilal. We don't want Bilal. Listen, Colby Covington was pathetic during that fight. It was pathetic. That fight would have been a lot better if that was Bilal Muhammad in that fight. And also think about this. If Bilal Muhammad fought and lost at UFC 296, we would be getting Leon Edwards versus, if obviously health plays a factor in this, but we would most likely be getting Leon Edwards versus Shavkat Rakhmonov in Manchester, England at UFC 304 for the main event. how hyped would everyone be for that fight? I'm already hyped for Leon versus Paul. I think I think that fight's getting super underrated. I think it's a great fight. But Leon versus Shavkat, if we just did a meritocracy, Bilal, maybe he wins, but he would have, let's say he loses, we would be on to the fight that all the fans really, really want to see if we had a meritocracy. Instead, we got Colby Covington, shit in his pants during that fight. I'm pretty sure his daddy and his idol, Donald Trump, walked out early during that fight too. I mean, absolute embarrassment from Colby Covington. And you look at Marlon Vera, it was better than, Colby Covington, but if Marlon Vera didn't have, the best durability I've ever seen in a fighter, at least on this roster, he gets finished in that fight. He got the brakes beat off of him. And I'm just looking at this. I'm like, this is a guy, Marlon Vera, who I know it was a split decision somehow, but he basically got 50-45 by Corey Sandhagen. And he barely squeaked by Pedro Munez, who Pedro just lost his last fight. I mean, Marlon Vera, I love the guy, but he didn't belong in there, and Sean O'Malley proved that. And as I said, if Marlon Vera didn't have a chin of God, Sean O'Malley's putting him out cold in that fight. Real bad. It would not have been a good night for Marlon Vera. And who knows, maybe Marlon Vera's chin never returns the same. But when we look at the middleweight division, there simply isn't a clear-cut number one contender. Everyone's probably like, oh, Sean Strickland. Listen, Sean Strickland at UFC 293 got an undeserved title shot. That was supposed to be Israel Adesanya against Dricus. It didn't happen because the UFC has terrible management. That's a whole nother topic for another day. Terrible management. So Dricus was injured. Couldn't make a 3-month turnaround, I believe. 3-4-month turnaround. If not shorter, who knows. Couldn't make the turnaround. So they had no one else to give Adesanya. They gave him Sean Strickland. And props to Sean Strickland. He won the fight fair and square. He took advantage of an opportunity given to him. Nothing but respect for that. But let's not act like Sean Strickland worked up the ladder he went all the way up the ladder to get his title shot. He didn't do that. He was gifted an undeserved title shot, and he never defended his belt. And let's say people might be like, oh, we got to win over Paulo Costa. That fight against Paulo Costa in the co-main event at UFC 302 was horrific. Both men just absolutely just pathetic performance from both men. That's all I have to say. And Sean Strickland, all we did was, props to him. He moved forward, but all we did was his jab and teep kicks and did 0 damage. That's why I went to split decision. And I get why I went to split decision. When you look at Paulo Costa and the leg kicks he hit Sean Strickland with, he debatably did more damage. Sean Strickland did 0 damage. But then, at the end of the fight, Sean Strickland wants to start swinging like a wild man. Hey, Sean, why don't you do this in other rounds? And, we're going to get on to who I think should fight the winner of the main event at UFC 305. I think there's a clear-cut number one contender, and his name is Robert Whittaker. Not only did he get a way better win over Paulo Costa, and I know we kind of got saved by the bell, but in round 2 and 3, and he debatably won all 3 rounds, to be completely honest. You can make a debate for that, but, let's say he won round 2 and 3 clearly, which he did. He put a bigger beating on Paulo Costa in 1 round to take round 1, 2, or 3. He put any of those 2 rounds. He put a bigger beating on Paulo Costa than Sean Strickland did in 5 rounds. I mean, I want to say I'm exaggerating there, but I don't think I am, to be completely honest. I don't think I'm exaggerating at all. And then after that, he was supposed to fight Hamzat this weekend. He fights Iskram Al-Skarab. And I know Iskram's not ranked. I know he technically kind of cut weight twice. It was short nose for him. Technically, it was short nose for both of them, but obviously, Iskram was trained for a can and Whittaker was trained for a beast like Hamzat Chimaev. Robert Whittaker goes out there and shows levels. Brutally knocks him out with that upper. I mean, that uppercut was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Gets a statement win in a huge card. First card in Saudi Arabia. Huge stage, huge card. Very big moment for Robert Whittaker. So when I look at the resumes, I see Sean Strickland got an undeserved title shot. He didn't defend his belt. He lost in a very close fight. Not a robbery. Very close fight. If you score for Strickland, that's fine, but very close fight. It was not a robbery. And he gets a horrific win over Paulo Costa where both men absolutely embarrassed themselves. And you have Robert Whittaker, who gets a way more impressive win over Paulo Costa, and he gets a great win over a pretty hyped up young, contender. Maybe not contender yet, but young prospect, let's say. A very hyped up young prospect in Iskram Al-Skarab. He gets a great win, shows levels in that fight. And that uppercut, as I said, just beautiful. So, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, Robert Whittaker's a clear number one contender. And for all the Strickland fans being like, oh, no, he deserves it. He deserves it. He's the rightful one. Why is nobody calling for Nasruddin Imavov to get the fight? I'm just butchered his name, so I apologize for that. But why aren't those guys calling for him? Nasruddin Imavov has not lost to Adesanya. He has not lost to Dricus, and he's on a 2-fight winning streak. Just beat Jared Cannonier. It's a very good win. Maybe a bit of early stoppage in that fight, but very, very good win. No one's calling for him to get it. So, everyone's saying that, oh, yeah, Strickland should get it. It makes sense for meritocracy, too. If you really, really want to talk meritocracy in the middleweight division, the only person that you can say that has a shot, or the only person you can say that should get the middleweight title shot is Nasruddin Imavov. And no one is calling for that. Everyone's saying, oh, Strickland that. I think Robert Whittaker clearly deserves the next shot. And, let's say you want to book Robert Whittaker versus Sean Strickland. I have no issue with that. You want to book Robert Whittaker versus Nasruddin Imavov? No issue with that. Or Strickland rematch with Nasruddin Imavov. I would personally love to see Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev. I think that would be amazing. But if you really want to go meritocracy, then you got to be calling for Nasruddin Imavov. But no one's doing that. So I'm not even going to put him in this equation right now because no one is doing that. So when you look at the middleweight division, Israel Adesanya makes complete sense for Dricus. And after that, Robert Whittaker has just had more impressive wins. He's on a longer win streak than Sean Strickland. And when Robert Whittaker got his title shots, he deserved those title shots. Sean Strickland didn't deserve his title shot. And he didn't defend his belt. So Sean Strickland, I'm not saying he's super far away from a title shot. But he at least needs to get one more win. And then he can go fight for the title. He says he wants to sit out, though. Good. Let him sit out. Honestly, he's one of the most boring strikers I've ever seen. He wants to sit out. Nothing wrong with that. Fair play to Strickland. If he wants to do that, go do it. I won't be falling asleep during co-main events anymore. So, honestly, I'm happy if he sits out. But, yes, as I said, this is the fight to make. Israel Adesanya, in a division with no clear number one contender, Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis makes perfect sense for the next title fight. And Robert Whittaker should fight the winner of that. So, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Even if we disagree, I always love a good civil conversation. Everyone usually, everyone has a right to their own opinion, and I love to talk about it and learn what yours is. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.